Yeah, let the big dog hunt. Hello again, everybody. Good morning to you. It is Friday, September 3rd. I'm along with my man right over there. He's Steve Kallas. Time for another episode of Kallas Remarks. With yours truly, I'm Joe Staszak, and of course, the man of the hour, Steve Kallas, the star of the show. Steven, how you doing today, my friend?
Oh, good, Joe. Great to be with you as always.
You too. We are less than 1 week away from the first game in the NFL season. The champs kick it off next Thursday night. We'll get to that in a little bit, but Cup Down Day. And there's always some, a lot of alterations between Cut Down Day and the season, but there were some surprises. Usually we talk about quarterbacks, and there were a couple that hadn't been decided last time we spoke, but the biggest one, I thought, was in New England. Do you go with Cam Newton, who looks like he could throw downfield now, or Mac Jones, and just go with the rookie right out of the gate? Some of his teammates are saying, I thought Tom Brady left 2 years ago. Like, he's been that accurate. And, the knock on him was, well, he did come from Alabama, came from a system, but he really kind of earned himself a job, and Cam Newton got cut.
Yeah, kind of surprising to me because, again, we talked about that one exhibition game where Cam threw it, slung it 25 yards down the middle of the field, back-to-back passes, did not throw the ball 50 yards, but looked like he could throw. The question for me was, can he throw it? And I thought the answer was yes. And he was so beloved by everybody, fans and in the locker room, and Belichick, who never says anything good about anybody, was like off the charts last year.
Yeah.
And interestingly, and you probably saw this at it was like 8:20 the morning he was cut. At 8:20, Belichick actually said at the press conference he's moving in the right direction. He had missed those days for that mistaken COVID protocol thing. He's clearly not vaccinated. There's a big dispute now whether that had to do or not. They're opening an investigation of Urban Meyer, who now has backtracked. Originally, he said it was a consideration, and now it said nobody was cut had anything to do with their vaccination, whether they were vaccinated or not. Cam chooses not to discuss it because it's personal. That means he's not vaccinated. I'm sorry.
Right.
And so, but at 8:20, that's what Belichick said at 10 o'clock, he got cut. An hour and 40 minutes later. So what's up with that? And I guess the theory is now you don't want Mac Jones looking over his shoulder. Although now to me, it's the Joe Staszak rule. Who's there? They even cut Brian Hoyer. So the backup is Stidham, who's injured and has rarely played. So what we've heard for 4 years, we love Stidham. He's great. Wow, we love Stidham. He's great. Well, Mac Jones jumped over him. Cam Newton jumped over him. I thought Brian Hoyer was jumping over him because he's hurt. Now everybody's gone but Mac Jones. And I guess Stidham is the backup, although right now he's injured. So it was just kind of weird. I thought there has to be a place for Cam. I really thought he was going to be the starter after he showed he could throw it. But, Mac Jones is smart off the charts. You don't hear what these guys say. James White said, I knew he could do it the first practice. You've heard a lot of things like that, including, I thought Tom Brady left 2 years ago. Well, let's not get carried away now.
Right.
The guy did well in exhibition games. But I think Nick Saban probably told Belichick, this kid's for real. He can be a big time player. And, they're tight. So that counts for a lot as well. And, it's the old, he won the job. Cam didn't lose it. He won it. But I'll say it again. I don't know if vaccination had anything to do with it or not, but there's something weird there because I thought at a minimum you would want the top backup quarterback in the league, which I think he is if he's the backup. I thought maybe he didn't want to do it, so they said, cut me loose, but we never heard any of that. And it was a little surprising to me because now they're kind of out there and there's no plan B. What's the plan B for the Patriots now? Re-sign Cam if he doesn't sign?
Yeah.
What happens if Mac Jones gets hurt or he throws 6 interceptions his first 2 games?
Exactly.
They're playing Miami. Miami always gives not only the Patriots, but Tom Brady trouble.
Yes, they do.
So I have a feeling they're going to give Mac Jones some trouble. But I still think it's what I said. Even if Cam was the quarterback, I think they're going to be, Patriots 13, Rams 3. I think they're going to pound the football. They're going to be a run game first team. They have a good defense. The other problem for them is Gilmore's on the PUP list, which I didn't know that was happening, but he's now going to miss the first 6 games. He's got that torn quad from last year. I guess he hasn't recovered from it. But to miss 6 games, everybody thought he was going to be gone. They were going to trade him, but they still have an excellent defense. But you take Gilmore out of the secondary, I don't know that they're the best secondary anymore. J.C. Jackson is really good, but you know who the other corner is going to be now? I think don't fall down, Jalen Mills. I think
Incredible.
He's a Patriot.
You're right. Well, they always play. Look at Patrick Chung won a couple rings after he got cut from the Eagles.
That's right.
He went back to. Again, it's like putting on that Yankee pinstripe. You go up to New England and you change into a decent player.
Yeah. So, we'll see what happens. But I was fascinated by the whole thing. And you better hope Mac Jones is really good and doesn't get hurt. Because if either of those things happen, it's going to be, well, why'd you really cut Cam? What was it? How stupid was that? You have no plan B.
Well,
your season's over. Unless he's really good, your season's over.
Well, what do you think about players who don't get vaccinated? There's a reporter named Greg Odell, and he works in Indianapolis. He covers the team. He's been killing Carson Wentz for weeks. And, his latest tweet said, Philly was right. Carson Wentz is selfish and a bad teammate. Carson Wentz refuses to get vaccinated, and then he got put on the COVID list for tracing the other day. He doesn't have COVID, but yeah, he's out for like 4 or 5 days. What do you think of that? And I mean, I know you can't. I guess you can't mandate it, but what do you think of players? Everyone's got their own thing. I get it, but you're kind of putting yourself at risk to the team, aren't you? Especially if you're the quarterback or the face of the franchise. You get COVID, you're out a couple weeks.
Well, I don't understand it because this Delta variant, I mean, it's just so terrible. A year ago, it was horrific, of course, but now it's almost like everybody thinks it's over when apparently this Delta variant is more contagious, much more contagious than the original COVID that you could get a year ago. And that's a problem everywhere in schools. I mean, it's a problem everywhere. So I don't understand the thought of why you don't get vaccinated. And I'll even point out, interestingly, that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 100% vaccinated now, the whole team and all the staff. So I don't know if it's a group mentality. I'm surprised Carson Wentz won't get it. You're putting yourself, your grandmother, your kids, your teammates, you're putting them all at risk. So I don't, again, quite understand it. Is it a personal decision? Well, yes and no. To me, it's a personal decision until you kill your grandmother.
Exactly.
And now it's so contagious that it's even worse. Maybe the answer will be, oh, it's not as bad infection-wise or whatever. But still, you're exposing everybody you love and your teammates, some of whom you may not love. But I think it's a problem in the NFL. That you can already bet in Vegas, not that I would ever do this. Will there be a forfeit this year because of COVID? And the rule now, if a game is postponed, if they can't reschedule it, and I thought they were pretty lucky last year in that they were able to find places for the teams to play. But if you can't reschedule it, then the team that caused the postponement can forfeit a game.
The game, yeah.
There's actually a Vegas number. I don't know what it is. Will there be a forfeit this year? And I thought they were lucky last year because they were able to either postpone the games till Monday or Tuesday or find another week. I don't know if that's going to happen this year. Plus, there's an extra game. I thought they might have like a total week off in the season, which I guess would be stupid when I think it through. That there might be a total week off later in the season where you could put all these games in. But no, they decided, we're going 17 games in 18 weeks, and we'll see what happens. But I just think it's dangerous and frankly stupid. I think it's worse for you got school-age kids. That's got to be very tough because I wouldn't want my kids in a room with kids who are unmasked. If you're under 12, you don't have a choice, so you better wear a mask. And at least in New York City, 1 million kids in the public school system. Right now, you don't have an opt-out to stay at home and study like you could last year. De Blasio's making everybody go to school. And I know a few parents with young kids who are like, my kid's 10. I don't want to send him to school. He can't get vaccinated. I would let him get vaccinated if there was a vaccine, but he can't. I want to do remote learning, and I don't have that option. Most other school districts, I think big school districts do have a remote option. There's a lot of pressure on de Blasio now to change that. we'll see what happens. But big picture for the NFL players, immediately with your family, your kids, your parents, but also immediately with your second family, which of course is your team, and you can't not be around them all the time. So I don't know what's going to happen. But if you're not vaccinated, if a team has a lot of players not vaccinated, I think there will be problems by definition.
I totally agree with you. I want to talk a little bit about the Eagles. They're kind of irrelevant this year, I would think, but head coach comes out the other day after, the press conference after the final 53-man cut, and he names Jalen Hurts. He had to be asked who's a starter. And he said, well, Jalen Hurts is our guy. I mean, on the whole camp. I mean, he's taking every word. It made it sound like the media has asked him 1,000 times, is Jalen, and he would, now he's almost insulted at the fact that we didn't know that he was a starter because he didn't announce it. Anyway, so Jalen Hurts is a starter, but they bring in Gardner Minshew. I think this happened after we did our podcast last week. I can see that maybe in Jacksonville, Urban Meyer doesn't want the distraction of Gardner Minshew, who's decent behind Trevor Lawrence, so they move him. And the Eagles pick him up because they're the quarterback factor here, according to Howie Roseman. What's behind that? How does Jalen Hurts, what's he supposed to think or feel? Or at first I thought it was a move to maybe move him to Houston in some kind of deal for Deshaun Watson, but apparently that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So he's a decent quarterback, but Joe Flacco is number 2 right now and played well in the preseason, I guess, for what it's worth. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I thought that was the reason, because the reason to have 3 quarterbacks is you might have to give Houston 2 quarterbacks. And all of those guys, okay, Hurts is a starter, but Flacco and Minshew are certainly very good backup quarterbacks. Again, the Joe Staszak rule, either one of those guys, if you put them in the game next week, you wouldn't say, oh, they have no chance to win. You'd say the opposite. So I thought that was the reason. If that's not the reason, then it's beyond stupid, because you have 3 pretty good quarterbacks. And I don't know if Jalen Hurts is good enough not to be looking over his shoulder right away. If the reason they got rid of Cam is so Mac Jones doesn't look over his shoulder, well, you can argue Flacco played better than Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts didn't play that much.
7 passes.
And Flacco is the seasoned veteran. He can't do it with his legs like Jalen Hurts can. And it's still open to see whether that's going to be a big benefit or not. I understand we're going to the running quarterback, but he's not Lamar. He's good. He's good. We're going to find out how good this year. He still, to me, is in a bad division, and that's a plus. I mean, who's really, really good? Everyone's picking the Cowboys again. Everybody picks the Cowboys every year, and they never win. And we don't even know. I know we're going to talk about next Thursday. Dak Prescott hasn't taken a snap, so he's going to walk onto the field in Tampa Bay. Yes, he has a lot of weapons, and do what? He's going to light up the Bucs with no. I understand he's Dak Prescott, but I think just as important as we've talked about for years with him is how good will Elliott be? Will he be good? The offensive line is never going to be what it was, the most dominant line in football, but are they good enough? They got a couple of guys coming back from injury, et cetera. So they'll be good, but is their defense much better? They're better, but they're so far away from good last year. I don't even know if I don't think they're good. Maybe they're average and they're hoping to win every game, 38-35. But here's a newsflash. The Bucs have all 22 starters back, as we know. And I think Dallas is in trouble.
I think they're in serious trouble. And, we usually do picks before week 1 or every week on our podcast. They play Thursday. Are they part of your 3-pack pick? They're part of mine. I'll be up front. I mean, Brady was, again, Brady in the preseason even. And until I see him take a step back, he's still, to me, he's Tom Brady. And, I love Brady and I'll always pick him. I'll never pick against him in a big game. So, and with what you said about Dak and who knows about Dallas' defense, yeah, I'm going with Tampa minus the 7.5 on Thursday night.
Yeah, when that game came out months ago, it was -6.5, went to 7. Now it's 7.5. I'm just wondering if Dak can't play, what's it going to 10? And again, the Bucs are at home. So I don't know how many more advantages you can have. They have all 22 starters back. They're playing at home. Brady still kind of looks like Brady. I mean, they went down the field back to back, 91 and 93-yard drives back to back. And it was just like scary. So I don't know why it was 6 or 6.5 to begin with. I thought it was going to be like 8 or 9. And if that got hurt, it would be like 12. Because I don't know what I'm missing. Are they going to stop the offense? Even if Dallas can somehow score a lot, which I don't think they can, but let's say they can put up 28 against the Bucs. I think it's going to be like 41-28.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how they're going to stop Brady. I mean, again, there was in one of those drives, they did the 2-minute drill just for kicks. You know, they went 91 yards in like 2 minutes and 20 seconds or something.
It was like 7 for 7.
And every you're like, and I don't think Gronk even got anything. Yeah, Gronk is like beyond secondary. He's not the main guy. OJ Howard is back. He had a few drops, but he's back. And you know, you shake your head when you see Evans. You know, I mean, they're just incredible. So I don't know how they're going to not be much better than last year because they had no preseason. Brady even said like the first 7-8 games were like exhibition games. And, you know, once it clicked in, forget it. They were unbeatable. So why is that going to change? I understand it's hard to repeat. I understand you get everybody's best shot. But Dallas might not even be the best team. I think Washington's going to win that division. I don't think Dallas is going to win.
I do too.
We'll have to see Fitzpatrick in the 17-game schedule. We'll have to see. But, you know, Daniel Jones, Tua, Dak, if he's healthy, is better than Fitzpatrick, but I don't even know that the other two are. And Fitzpatrick saved Tua like 3 times last year.
Yeah, he did.
But we don't even know how he's going to be. Now, a big thing in sports, and hear what Brian Flores says about Tua. And then he says, yeah, we're confident in him. He's our guy. And thankfully, they then come back and say, Adam Schefter says, well, what do you think he was going to say? Thank you. What do you think, Brian Flores? Yeah, we're worried with his progress. He really wasn't as good as we thought last year. He's not quite better. And maybe they wanted to get rid of Fitzpatrick because they don't want him looking over their shoulder.
Right, sure.
I don't know, but I'll say it again. When you give up the good backup, Cam Newton, Fitzpatrick, and your guy isn't an elite guy, you got a problem.
Cooper Rush is the backup for Dak Prescott, by the way. Yeah, because Andy Dalton got moved.
I don't. And look at the Jets. I can't even tell you who their backup is.
Yeah, you're right. It's just crazy. So, going to be interesting. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to it next Thursday night. We'll be back next week and we'll recap the Thursday night.
We're both taking the Bucs in advance.
Oh, absolutely, totally. Just go to bed. Don't worry about this game. Of course, famous last word. So a little college football. We'll touch on it. It's already underway. Ohio State, one of the top teams again. I'll let you extol their virtues. Miami and Alabama, 14-1. A neutral site game. Bryce Young, new quarterback for Alabama. Miami returning 20 starters. I don't know what that says because they weren't that good last year. So just returning the same guys, you know. The last 2 games, they gave up 99 points and 1,200 yards to North Carolina and Oklahoma State. So, but Coach Diaz is taking over for Blakely, I think was his name, the defensive coordinator, because of how they ended up last year. And there's De'Ara King, the quarterback, who's a Heisman candidate already. Bryce Young, Alabama. Bill O'Brien, we talked about, the offensive coordinator for Alabama, couldn't do it in the pros, but 19.5-point favorite. I mean, that tells you something, at least. Again, I always like to give it a few weeks because who knows who's even Vegas, as good as they are, who really knows? But that's a big spread with they don't have Jalen Waddle anymore. They don't have Devonta Smith. They don't have Mac Jones. And I know they just reload, but what do you think of that line? And how do you think Alabama will perform? I mean, they don't have to wait for a test. This should be some sort of a test for them. Any chance they get upset?
I don't think so, because I think Alabama, with their offense, as you said, reloading. I mean, I think they had 5 number 1 draft picks, 5 first-round draft picks, which is just incredible. Including Mac Jones, of course, going to the Patriots. But I think they're just too good, because I don't see how Miami can improve their defense in one recruiting class or rely on these guys, as you said, to get better. You're playing Alabama. It's not the greatest scheduling job by whoever schedules Miami's games. You don't even get a cupcake to slaughter before you.
Someone's getting fired for that. If I run the program, someone's getting fired for putting Alabama number 1. I know they like to play big teams and they don't usually shy away, but like, how about Bishop Sycamore, putting them on the schedule somewhere?
I hope everybody knows what that means. That's that ESPN disaster with a high school team that's not really a high school, or
I don't get it.
Very good.
What are they? What is that?
It was so, I mean, that's just a commentary. Frankly, ESPN got duped. And I don't know if these high schools get paydays like the cupcakes who get slaughtered in the NCAA get paydays.
Right.
But yeah, that was kind of a disgrace. But I would never bet these kinds of games, but I would pick Alabama, even minus the spread, because I think they're going to score 40 or 50 points.
They could.
And again, you talk about reloading. Nobody reloads better than Alabama. It seems like they have 5. I'm not saying they do, but it seems like they have 5 first-round picks every year. And if they don't, they only have 2 or 3 or 4. Right. But Saban is still the king until Clemson kind of made a run. I think they're going to take a step back. I think they're preseason number 3. I know Ohio State. I did watch some of the Ohio State game. That CJ Stroud, he looks pretty good. And, you can tell me, like the coach said afterwards, go on the road, league victory. They're very tough. Minnesota looked okay. They actually had the lead in the beginning of the third quarter. But, at the end of the day, it was 45-31. Stroud threw for 4 touchdowns. I'll say it again. My problem in college is always, even in that game, the guys who were open by like 5 yards.
Yeah, right.
Alabama, their wide receivers, they're like always open by 5 yards. So we're going to have to see how good Mac Jones is throwing into tight windows in the NFL. I'm not as convinced as everybody else, but, I wasn't at practice. I didn't really see it. We'll just have to see like how that goes, because I just don't know. But in that particular game, I take Alabama. I think Ohio State looked good. But again, you're losing to Minnesota in the third quarter. I don't see how you're going to match up with Alabama. I just, I don't see how anybody matches up with Alabama. And once in a while they get beat, but it has to be like, Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
So we'll have to see what happens with Clemson. Because I don't know really how much they've reloaded. It's kind of hard to see until after you've seen, in my opinion, 5 or 6 games. But I think Miami's in trouble.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with you, unfortunately. Yeah, we shall see. The Clemson quarterback is DJ Ugalele, who played a couple games for Trevor Lawrence last year when he was out with COVID. Right. So it should be interesting. Usually these new quarterbacks take them a few games, but Alabama is Alabama, and that's just a big line. That might be telling you something. Even though it's week 1, we shall see. Talk a little baseball. Your boy Miguel Cabrera not getting the love that I think you think he should be getting. He's approaching 3,000 hits. He's now in the 500 home run club. Ohtani, 42 home runs. That guy continues to amaze me. Your thoughts on baseball as we head into September?
Well, again, I don't know if it's me. Cabrera has 2,963 hits, so he needs 37 hits in 28 games. I personally don't think he'll get that. But as far as I can tell, and I'm surprised nobody else has written this or talked about this, I don't think anybody in the history of baseball has 500 homers, 3,000 hits, and a Triple Crown. I don't think that person exists, and I think Cabrera deserves more credit. At the beginning of the year, it looked like he should retire. He was horrific.
Really?
But he turned it around. I think he said he even wants to keep playing after he gets, I don't know when his contract expires, but he wants to keep playing. You know, he had 2 hits the other night. He looks much better in the box now. It's a weird league he's playing in now because it's kind of a home run, walk, strikeout league. And he's one of those few guys with 500 homers who's over, 300, 310. I think there's like 5 guys. And most of those guys are like, Jimmy Fox and Babe Ruth. And I'm not knocking it, but, it was easier to hit 310. These guys hit 340 like guys today hit 290. So It just shows you how great, to me, Cabrera is. And, we'll have to see. But I went through all the 500 homer, 3,000 hits guys. I actually went through all the Triple Crown winners. And there's no Triple Crown winner who has 500 homers and 3,000 hits. Ted Williams won them twice. But he lost 5 seasons. That's why he doesn't have 5,000 hits. I'm sorry, 3,000 hits.
Right.
And he does have 500 homers. Hornsby won 2 Triple Crowns. But all those guys back in the 20s and 30s, nobody had 500 homers except Ruth. So I don't know who the guy is because I don't think he exists. And the notion that Cabrera could be the first should be one of the most heralded accomplishments, in my view, in the history of baseball. And don't forget, the guy won 4 batting titles. So it's not like he's a fluke and had one good year when he won the Triple Crown. He won 4 batting titles. And of course, Williams, with 2 Triple Crowns, he won 6 batting titles and 521 homers. But because he missed so much time to the service, that's why he doesn't have 3,000 hits. That's arguably why he's the greatest hitter who ever lived, which is what he always wanted to be.
Incredible stuff. Your thoughts on the races, the pennant races, NL East? Phillies were out 7 games or 17 and a half back in 2007. So being out 2 to 3 games isn't the end of the world, but do you see anything with the Phillies in terms of, now that Rhys Hoskins is out for the year?
Well, the NL East, as we thought, is not a good division.
No.
And once I thought, frankly, once the Braves lost Acuna, they were done, but I was wrong.
Yeah.
And so, but right now, if you're at, and this is what I hate about baseball, I'm sorry, or all sports now, if you're at 500, you're totally in the mix. The Mets won 2-11 against 2 of the best teams in baseball. And now they have a 5-game winning streak against, 2 of the worst teams in baseball. And that's just the luck of the schedule. But now, they're right back in it. And I'll just give you the wild card standings quickly. The Dodgers and the Giants are both 85 and 49. Those are the best records in baseball. But the loser of that battle, because they're in the same division, has 13 games up in the wild card. So, 1 wild card is already gone. But the second wild card right now is the Reds at 72 and 63. The Padres are a half game out. They have 1 less win. The Phillies, as you said, 69 and 64. They're 2 games out of the second wild card. And the Cardinals, 68 and 64, 2.5 out. So that's basically, I don't frankly count the Mets in the wild card. Although, as you said now, the Mets are back in it because Atlanta got swept by the A's and the Mets were playing the Marlins. So it is kind of schedule based. And you knew the Mets were going to be terrible in those 13 games. I didn't think they'd be 2-11 terrible. But now they've won 5 in a row because they're playing cupcakes. And it's just it's so based on your schedule now. But, the Phillies are in the mix for the wild card. I guess they're in the mix for, the Braves are coming back to the pack because they just got swept. But I give them credit for hanging around without Acuna. He's one of the 5 best players in baseball.
Yes,
and they don't have Ozuna either. So, and quickly in the AL wild card, Yankees won 13 in a row and then they lost 4 in a row. Thankfully for them, they have Garrett Cole, who's a legit, stopper, struck out 15 Angels the other night to give them a win. But their lead in the wild card, which had been 4 or 5 a few days ago, is now 2. They're 2 over the Red Sox, who are the second wild card. And the A's are 2 behind the Red Sox. The Mariners are 4 behind, and the Blue Jays are 5 behind. So the AL East is very talented because you have the Rays 8-9 games ahead of everybody. But then the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the Blue Jays, they're all in the mix for a wild card. So that's a pretty good division. And I think the individual races are interesting. But again, to me, the NL East, if you're at 500, you're kind of in the mix. And now, obviously, we just said with the Phillies 5 games over, you got to be a little better than that. And the Braves are going to come back to the pack because I don't think they're that good, although they play great for a while as well. But that's really not a good division. I won't say it's the NFC East, but the NL East is not a very good division. That's all I'll say. In that league, everybody's kind of in for a playoff berth, but that's because the bar is much lower right now in the NL than it is in the AL. When I say there's 4 teams going for the wild card in the AL, the Yankees are 19 games over 500. So that's like something to me, but nobody's catching the Rays. People thought in New York that the Yankees would catch the Rays. The Yankees played out of their minds and they picked up like 1 game on the Rays, and then they lose 4 in a row. And I think the Rays won 3 of those 4. So now they're, it's goodbye. They're like 8 or 9 games ahead of the Yankees. And I don't think the Yankees are going to catch them. The Rays, you got to give them credit. They do it, although they've never won it all. But they've been consistently good for a long time now. And that's pretty incredible because they still have a low payroll.
Really low payroll. That's impressive. The city of champions now. I can't believe I'm saying that. I just want to finish on this one sour note in Philadelphia. It keeps getting more sour, but the Ben Simmons saga. I mean, camp's coming up again, believe it or not. And the Sixers haven't moved him. Daryl Morey wants like a king's ransom for him, and he's usually good at like plucking teams. But I mean, seriously, who's going to give up a lot for Ben Simmons unless you really like the things that he does well, which he does do some things very well. But the fracture in Philly, I thought was mostly with the fans, but he came out the other day, like it was breaking news, like I don't want to play for the Sixers anymore. Still sending out videos of him practicing in LA, which I'm just cringing watching them. What do you thought? And then he says he wants to go to at least two of the teams of his choice are the Kings and the Trailblazers. What do you think of this mess?
I think he's going to make himself less relevant. He's got 4 years and 147 million left on his contract. If he goes to the Kings, if they make the playoffs, that's good. But, they can't sniff the top teams. And much as I like Portland over the years, does Damian Lillard still want out? Because they're always good, but they're never good enough.
Right.
And you'll laugh at me, but they lose Carmelo Anthony to the Lakers. And to me, that's a big loss for Portland.
Mm-hmm.
Carmelo has resurrected his career. And so I don't know where they're going. Now you put Ben Simmons on that team. What's he going to play? They're going to play a 3-guard offense? Because I guess they're going to have to, because their strength is McCollum and Lillard. I just don't know. And the other thing I'll say that I found the most interesting, I saw a very brief quote. Tell me if you saw this, because I wasn't quite paying attention, but Doc Rivers said, essentially, you've kind of done this over and over and over again. You're going to have to change something. It's like the definition of insanity, right? It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So in my view, the NBA is who you put around your 2 or 3 superstars, who the Lakers have put around LeBron and AD for next year, who the Sixers have put around for, Simmons and Embiid, even who the Nets have put around, even though they have 3 superstars, assuming they can play together and assuming they're healthy. So when Doc Rivers said that, it sounded to me like he was almost hoping they trade Simmons. I don't know. When you say, if you repeat the same thing over again, how can you expect different results? The same thing in Philadelphia has been Simmons and Embiid. Tobias Harris, they lost, Tobias Harris, they had to give a max contract because they lost Jimmy Butler. And obviously, what did Jimmy Butler know? To leave town, go to Miami, make the finals, not do as well this year, but, they've made some good additions for next year themselves. So I think Simmons' value, although they'll get something good, I think it's at an all-time low. A couple of years ago, you could have got the sun, the moon, and the stars for Ben Simmons. But you would have had to have then said to me that the process was a total failure. And again, the Sixers have become a very good team. They can't get over the hump. When you look back at, a couple of years from now at the last 5 or 6 years, it's going to be the 4-bounce Kawhi Leonard in the corner jump shot. That kind of ended the process when you look back now, a few years later. Yeah. Now, if that shot didn't go in, it would have been overtime. Would they have won in overtime? Right. You never know, blah, blah, blah. But given the results of these games, I think you have to say it hasn't worked. They've become a very good team when one would think they were going to be champions, and the league got more superstar oriented per team, where you'd not only have two, but you'd have three superstars. And, the Lakers did it with two a couple of years ago and might have done it again but for injuries. Whatever you think of what happened in the playoffs this year, and good for Milwaukee that they won, I don't know that they're the favorites in the East because of the Nets, for example. So a lot, and even Phoenix, I don't think they're getting back to the finals this year. So I think the Sixers are in trouble because I think we've seen their peak, and it might have been a 4-bounce jump shot by Kawhi Leonard, but I think we've seen their peak, and I don't know what more they could do. Doc Rivers might have a point. I don't know if he means trade Simmons. I thought at the end of the year he said, I love both of those guys.
Yeah,
you can love both of them and trade them, I guess. So I don't know if that's a mixed message. It was very interesting. But a lot does depend when you have the superstars, who those 5 guys or 6 or 7 guys around them are. And, that's an open question in Philly. And, it's an open question in a few other places as well. So I hope Ben's taking 1,000 jumpers a day. I don't think he needs to make threes. I do think he needs to make, 12, 14 footers, because guys are giving him 5 feet when he comes up the floor now. And that's not going to change.
I agree, Steve, and great job as usual. It's fun talking as college football is going to be underway soon, and the pros. I'm looking forward to it. It's been 7 months. Although the 7 months seems to go kind of fast, it's 7 months. So it's about time football return. Great stuff as usual. You can catch Steve's stuff on his Facebook forum page. Speaking of sports with Steve Kallas. Follow me on Twitter at JoeStaszak975. This podcast is on YouTube every week, along with Steve's Facebook and my Facebook page. And great job again, Steven. And you can also catch Steven's videos, his other videos on WestchesterCountyPost.com on YouTube. Look for them weekly, and he's got a lot of good stuff. You're going to want to check out Steve's stuff. Great job as usual, Bud. We'll catch you. I'll be texting you this weekend, but then we'll reconvene after next Thursday night's game on Friday morning.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
You too, Steve. Take care. And folks, we appreciate it. Have a great weekend, great Labor Day weekend. Hope you had a great summer. We'll talk to you soon.